All right. Hello. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Corning Museum of Glass. Welcome to our hot glass studio here in the amphitheater, and those of you online as well on our live stream. So we've just begun our live stream here for Shoplifter, which is our visiting artist for the week. Let's get a big round of applause going for Shoplifter, everyone. Thank you very much. Along with Shoplifter, we have Jade, her assistant. We have Tom as our lead gaffer here at the museum, Michael, Jesse, and myself, Katie, who will walk you all through this process. And then I'll answer any questions for you here in-house and also online. So if you have questions online, please ask them in the comments. And if you have any questions for me, just let me know. You can yell my name out. You can raise your hand. I'm going to be here for you. So we're going to get started. I'm going to tell you basically what we're going to work on, or to give some background information about Shoplifter, and then the demo will progress. And we have a lot of really amazing things that we've been working on this week. It's been a really great creativity kind of stretch for all of us, and we're really excited to show this off. So we have begun this process just a little bit earlier, mostly because this process is going to take longer than the hour-long demonstration time that we have. So we started about 20 minutes ago. So Tom here has a few layers of color for this bubble. This is a bubble on a blowpipe. He just gathered some glass from our furnace, which is at 2,100 degrees Fahrenheit. At the temperature, glass moves like honey. It's runny, and it glows like that. So we gathered that extra layer of clear, but underneath that, we have two layers of color inside of, so the first layer of color, which is going to be the inside of the bubble, is a beautiful iris vanilla. It's one of my favorite colors because when you reduce it, which means you bring the metals to the surface that are from the color, you get a beautiful golden sheen. So the inside will be, actually this is a good example of that. This has the iris vanilla on the inside. You see how shiny it is? Isn't that lovely? So that's our goal for the inside look for that piece. We have a layer of yellow on the outside of that. And then we're going to build up a few more layers of kind of some chartreuse green, maybe a little bit more bright yellow. I think Shoplifter mentioned that she wanted this to be the accent rug of kind of color palette, which I think is going to be perfect. Ties the room together, that's right. Ties the room together. All right, so with that second layer of glass, we want to cool and shape the outside because we're going to build lots of layers up. We're shaping the outside so we can then let it cool again and gather another layer over the top. We'll do that multiple times. So it's a good thing we started this early because this process sometimes takes 20, 30, sometimes 40, 50 minutes to do. The pieces that we've been working on are all out here on the table. You're welcome to come down and see them a little bit closer. These kind of more clear pieces were made on Monday. And then we started to add color on Tuesday, and that's what these are here. And then we're kind of adding some of Shoplifter's hair into it too. Not actual, I mean, we could, she uses that, but some synthetic hair that she works with throughout her work. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. So yeah. All right, so while we let this cool, we'll just go right into some information about Shoplifter. So she is one of Iceland's leading contemporary artists. She's based here in New York. She's been here in New York City for about, well, not here in New York City. She's been in New York City for about 30 years now. And she works with both synthetic and natural hair. Her sculptures, wall murals, and site-specific installations explore themes of vanity, self-image, fashion, beauty, and popular myth. For Shoplifter, hair is the ultimate thread that grows from our body. Hair is an original creative fiber, a way for people to distinguish themselves as individuals, and often an art form. Humor plays a large role in her life and work, sometimes subtly, but other times taking over. Go to her website. We have that listed on the whiteboard over here. It's shoplifterart.com, and then her Instagram is also at shoplifterart. To see some of her work that she's done, this is a really good way to just kind of understand what I'm talking about because it's really difficult to explain the work that she does. She does this really, really large, elaborate installations of this beautiful synthetic hair, which we have here, this rainbow kind of cornucopia of different colors, but different installations will be displayed differently. But this is an example of what she works with. So really, really fun. Yeah, check out her website, check out her Instagram. She's done a lot of amazing projects. She has an extensive list of fine art works and group shows she's participated in throughout her career. Her projects range from ready-to-wear hair designs for fashion shows to hair sculptures for singer-songwriter Björk, no big deal, to large-scale installations. And she's received numerous awards for her artwork from various parts of the world too. So we are thrilled to have her here with us at the Hot Glass Studio. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been really fun. So she gets 1 week here to do whatever she wants with our material, work with our team, which is a team full of expert glassmakers that will help her see her dream through. So she's here again all day tomorrow. Actually, that's her last day. And then she'll head back home. But yeah, she's been having fun so far. All right, so that's our, let's call it our third gather of glass. And this is just the beginning. We're going to gather at least 2 more times over this. So Tom, every time he gets a gather from our furnace, he brings it back to the workbench. He shapes and cools the bubble. We need to keep the bubble, its integrity, alive inside of this because we need that to kind of be there the whole time so we can still inflate the bubble and shape it as we're literally kind of mangling the glass like this. We're adding all these different amazing patterns into it. So what we're going to do today is something very similar to what you see here, adding a lot of texture, adding a lot of kind of various landscape to the glass. And we're going to do that using lots of different processes. So initially, these were just kind of pushed and pulled and twisted up. But also, we can roll on chunks of clear glass. That's what we have over here on the Marver table. We're going to roll up those chunks of clear. We have some melted together frit that we can attach onto the piece. The frit is little granules of crushed up glass color that can be melted on and shaped around. So yeah, a lot still to come and more pushing and pulling and twisting in the glass up too. So we're going to add another layer. All right. Okay, so we have at least one more gather. I don't know if we'll do 2, but definitely one more. We're going to preheat these chunks of frit, which is just crushed up glass. This is our clear glass. And then we're going to roll that glass into it. The glass that we use in-house here at the museum is Glasma, which is a Swedish brand of glass. Glasma is a really wonderful type of glass. It's a different formula. I should say that there are many different manufacturers of glass that can be used in a hot shop, and Glasma is the one that we use. We buy it as batch from them, and batch is the raw form of glass. It looks like this stuff here. We actually buy it pelletized, which means that the raw ingredients of the glass, which are silica sand, soda ash, and limestone, are pelletized so that there isn't a lot of dust when we do charge the glass into the furnace. And so that makes it a lot safer for us to use here in the hot shop. We charge our furnaces at least once a week. And so being around that material in its pelletized form is a lot safer and much more of an enjoyable experience to charge the furnace. We had a different brand of glass about a year ago, and we weren't getting the right results that we really wanted from the material. And when we realized that Glasma would be a nicer glass for us to use, not only for us to use in the hot shop, but for us to buy from and charge, we were very excited to start to work with them. So we're going to roll some Glasma into Glasma. In just a second, we're going to take it out of the furnace on this gather and then roll it into those chunks of clear glass, that Glasma. That's actually recycled from other pieces that we might make out of clear. If we do that for a demonstration, we can put it back in the furnace and we can We're going to put it back in the oven to a high temperature. Then we take it out of the oven and we break it up into little water buckets. And then, once it's broken up like this, we can use it like that. Okay, so here we go, our final gather into our furnace. So Tom dips that glass beneath the level, he turns in one direction. This is gonna add at least maybe 5 to 7 pounds of glass onto already probably around 10 pounds of glass. Look at that. And then immediately he's gonna roll that into the glass. But look at that, it just sticks right on. That's perfect, it's a really great roll. Glasma on glasma. If we let a lot of that roll off, it'll just fall onto the marble. So Tom's thinking about gravity here. So he held it up for a second. That's a really good coverage. And that's what you get when you heat up the frit beforehand. It'll stick better. And then now, Shoppy's going to jump in and then squish and squeeze and twist and manipulate that glass into whatever form she desires. This is kind of the fun part. Well, for all of us, really, but especially for her. We have a multitude, a myriad of tools, if you will, from all kinds of different projects, also from the Steuben factory that used to be right here where the amphitheater is today. We kept a lot of those tools. And so this is kind of definitely a playground for her at the moment. Sticking all these different tools in there and pulling it around and twisting it up. She's wearing gloves because she's very close to the glass. She's about 2 inches away, sometimes 1 inch away from the glass. That's where the heat is. So a lot of times we get questions, why don't we wear gloves in the studio? Why don't we wear full body suits, I hear sometimes, but we don't need it. We simply aren't that close to the glass. We don't touch anything that's hot. But Shoppy right now is pressing the glass. She's there for at least 2 seconds every time, and she's 2 inches away. So that heat adds up, and that will be very uncomfortable. Anybody who's doing this will add gloves to their hands. They would need glassmaker. Shoplifter is not a glassmaker. She is an artist. She is a textiles artist, a synthetic hair artist, if you will. And so she does have a little bit of training of glass. We don't, she's had a little bit of experience before this with glass at Pilchuck and then in a few different studios since then. So she knows kind of the run of the shop, but she doesn't gather the glass out of the oven and manipulate it that way. She's not a glass blower. She is an artist that can use glass artists to help her make glass, really anything. So we're going to heat this up in the oven. That's our reheating chamber, 2,100 degrees Fahrenheit. Same temperature as our melting furnace. That one's empty. We go into that oven to rework the glass, to heat it up so we can bring it back out and change its shape. And then this is really kind of what we're going to do, a lot of reheating and then a lot of grabbing and twisting and shaping. And then as this is happening, you see the glass fall a little bit. The whole thing is really, really hot. This is a good time for Shoplifter to get in there and move it efficiently before the whole thing starts to solidify. Then we're going to have to work it kind of spot by spot using a torch. But we sure do have lots of surface here. So back to the oven. We're going to add some powder. So we have a few pieces over here that have layers of glass on the inside. Like this is, maybe it was just an overlay and the color's not right on the inside, but this was color that's in the glass. This is glass color that has color in it too, but also color on top. So this is some powder that's been added to the surface of the material. Sometimes if it's light like this, you can kind of scratch that off so it isn't really melted in, but that's what gives this really cool matte finish. It really brings out some of the luster in the glass too. I really like that finish for these pieces because you get such magnitude from the layers of glass, the thickness in kind of these different kind of billowy forms. And then that powder on top just really mats that up nicely sometimes. So it's cool what she's been doing with the material. Having a visiting artist like this with us here at the Hot Glass Show is really fun on our Hot Glass team. We are very used to making glass that doesn't necessarily look like this at all. So when we get to see it and work with it, we become inspired in many different ways. So we have fun too. Any questions here? Yeah. Yeah, we do. Yeah. So to get glass down to room temperature, we have to slowly cool the glass in a process known as annealing. Yeah. That piece that we're working with right here, we made one just like that yesterday. And that's in this oven right here that says do not open. And that's still at 726 degrees. And we sent it down yesterday at 4 p.m. from 950 degrees. So it'll take a while. I think that's on a 3-day cycle. We'll probably do a 3-day cycle for this too. Yeah, good question. Any other questions at the moment? Cool, awesome. We've got some really great kind of big craters in here. Looks a bit like a cage. We did a lot of work to the outside of the piece when it was hot. We kind of had to do it then. Traditionally, in the process of glass making, you'll start the neckline to the bubble before you really shape anything else. Here, we wanted to jump on that heat first, so we did not put a neckline in there, and we're going to do that now. So we're doing it a little bit late, but it's fine. It's kind of like what was necessary for this. So Tom's using a really hot torch there. That's around 4,000 degrees at the moment, and that's going to superheat the glass. In a line, we're going to start the neckline. When he goes in for this reheat, that heat heats up even more. So we're going to gently heat that section so that we can make that neckline. The neckline is put into the glass via a pair of jacks, which is a very handy glass making tool Tom has in his hands. I'm going to just jump in and make sure Tom's comfortable. He does have a glove on his hand. He has to be over this glass right now, about, let's see here, maybe 4 or 5 inches away from it. And to be there for this duration, his hand would be pretty uncomfortable. So he put a glove on, and I'll shield the rest of his arm with these boards in the meantime. So we want to make this line pretty small, however, not really small. And then once that's in there really nicely, we'll be able to transfer this over and open it up. So soon we'll transfer this over and open this up a little bit. And then I just heard we're going to add some more of those chunked bits onto the top. And then some color, all kinds of things. So now we want to let that neckline solidify so that it stiffens up before we transfer it over. So Tom can kind of heat up other areas that might be a little chilly. And then we'll transfer that over onto a punty. There's so much team working involved in glass making. And so we've got 4 of us here on the Hot Glass Show team helping. And I'm going to jump in here too because we'll lose someone because they're going to make the punty. All right. So we're going to just heat this up enough to keep it hot. If the glass at any point gets too cold, it will crack and it will break. So we need to maintain a high temperature. I like to say above about 900 degrees, but there's really no way to truly measure it. You only know if you mess it up is if you go back in the furnace and it breaks. So we've done that many, many times as novice glassmakers when we were learning how to do this. And that's how you build up experience of how not to do it. And so we know now with Tom's 20 years of glass experience how far we can push the glass. This bit of glass that we have here, our piece that we're working on, the thinnest part is maybe, I don't know, 1.5 centimeters. That's pretty thick, and that gives us a lot of leeway with temperature. So the thicker the glass is, the longer it takes to cool. The thinner it is, it cools or it heats up very quickly. So the thicker it is, the longer time we have. We can stay out of the oven, I should say. Are those doors okay? Okay. Yeah, maybe something like that. I don't know. So in the meantime, Jesse's gonna make sure this piece stays nice and warm. Tom will just add a little heat where it might get a little cold. There might be smaller, thinner areas that could just chunk off. We want to keep those on there. So we'll add some torch heat to it. Then Michael will bring over the punty that he made. Tom will apply the punty somewhere. There's no traditional bottom on this piece, no center. We're just going to find a section and attach it. Then, to remove the piece from the blowpipe, we're going to thermally shock that small constriction line, which means that we're going to rapidly cool it. When glass heats, it expands, and when it cools, it contracts. When we cool it quickly like that, the glass will contract quickly, and it will crack and break right along that line. So that thermal shock, we can use it as a tool. So Tom is going to just let that punty set up. He's going to add some supplemental heat to the top part, which is the colder section. This actually helps break this piece off the blowpipe when we go for it. All right, so the next step is to get it to disconnect with a drop of water that will be the thermal shock agent. The cold water, it's just room temperature water, but very cold to the glass. And then a tap on the pipe will break that glass free. And then we will bring this to the oven. Here it goes. Perfectly disconnected. Let's give the team a big round of applause for that move. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we have an opening. You can see the opening very clearly in our reheating chamber camera. We're going to really focus the heat on that section. And then once that starts to move around, we can add more of those chunks. And that's why we're reheating those chunks. We're going to roll into that again. So we'll focus heat on the top there just by using the reheating chamber, really only heating that section. Okay. All right, Tom runs on over there. Not really. Walks with confidence over to the glasma chunks. And he just rolls it on there. And Michael's there with the jacks to make sure we don't close off the opening. It's possible, but then he can get right in there and open that up. If you close off a bubble that we're going to heat and cool, heat and cool, and heat and cool, and shape it some more, the bubble could expand without without us wanting it to during this process. So we keep that bubble open. There's no need to close it. We actually want it to be open when it's finished as well. All right, so you can see the speckles that we have there, the chunks at the top, or I think we're going to do that again. Some more contact. Look at that. Looks icy. She loves it. Shoplifter is very happy. So I'm surprised no one's asked yet why we call her Shoplifter. But her name, it's her, I'll tell you the story. So when she moved here 30 years ago to New York City, she introduced herself to someone, and she's from Iceland, and her name is spelled out on the whiteboard over there. It starts with an H. Out of respect, I'm not going to try to pronounce it. I've tried in my head, so I'm not going to do it. So But what happened in New York City 30 years ago? She introduced herself to someone, and they also felt the same way about replying and saying that out loud, that instead of saying the wrong word, they said shoplifter. And she said, that's a great nickname. I'm going to keep that. So that is her nickname. But her full name is on her website. You'll have to check that out. Yeah. It's out there. It's there. She does include that on her Instagram, too. So you can also read that. But I will call her Shoplifter. Shoppy is good, too. We'll call her that. But I also want to talk about, I found this on one of her websites. I think it's a really great response to the question of why hair. Have you checked out her work yet online? You should. It's amazing, and it'll really kind of make sense about kind of her vibe and the things that she likes to make. But she says that she finds it fascinating that we have this forever changing vegetation all over our bodies, which we have to groom and tame. Hair is a remnant of the wildness that we possess, and one of the few things that survives our existence. It's like a shield, or alternatively, it can be a way of showing yourself the world. A lot of people find hair so creepy once it's off their body, yet it's such a pride and beauty when it's on the body, even though it's the same fiber. She says, when I work with hair, I hope to evoke these simultaneous feelings, the opposites of disgust and beauty. In many ways, hair pulls you in because of its ornamental elements, its colors and softness. It's almost cuddly, agreed. But at the same time, you can feel disgusted because of its volume, and you have to decide in the moment which way you're going to go. It pulls you in two directions, and then you have to settle into one feeling. There's such a fine line between the grotesque and the beautiful. I thought that was really, really special and true, quite true. Look at that. Look at the shape that we've gotten with this already. She's pulled that way out. This really reminds me of a lot of kind of like crusty sea forms, crustaceans. Remember the inside of that. Okay, so remember the color that we have. We have the outside that you saw. The majority of this demonstration is what you think is orange. It looks orange. But it's actually a yellow. So it's kind of like a bright yellow. The inside of it is going to look like this when it's finished. That shiny gold on the inside. So this is a color that we call it reducing. And that means that the metals in the color will rise to the surface if you take away the environment's oxygen. So if you basically use that torch against it, all the metals that are in the color will rise to the surface, and it'll make that shiny look. So that's what we'll do in the very end of it. Right now, it's going to look kind of milky white, which is the vanilla that we use. That's what it actually is if you don't reduce it. And if you do reduce it, beautiful, brilliant gold. And then onto the surface, again, I mentioned earlier, we're going to add some chartreuse. We're going to add some kind of powdery green, bright green. Oh, yeah. She's using the back of the taglio, which is a tool that every glassmaker will have. It's the handle, but this is what we usually use. It's a flat metal kind of spatula, and she's using the back of it. So anything can be a glass tool if you want it to be, as long as it doesn't melt. No plastic, no Teflon, no harmful to breathe things when they melt, but wood. You can use rocks. You can use any metal. You can use graphite. Newspaper, we use newspaper. That's a common tool. Now she's got something I've never used before, but I've always wanted to. It's kind of got a shape of a C, and then the other, so it's tweezers. One part is the shape of a C, and the other part rests within the crevice of the C. Someone somewhere developed it for something, I don't know what, but we'll use it right now. Okay, now we're doing section by section. We're not going to go over the entire thing, just parts that we want to change, but using that hot torch, we'll superheat particular areas, change those areas, and move on to the next one. This is not something that would always be able to be done in the history of glass. The torch in the hot shop setting is relatively new. Glassblowing's been around for 2,000 years. Using a torch is, I don't know exactly when, but it's relatively new, maybe the last 200 or so years. Less than that, probably. Pressing that tool. That's an inside sculpting tool that a lot of glass sculptors will use to push the bowl from the inside out. So it's long, so you can fit the tool into the hole and then use it on the top. Which tool next is the next question. Yeah. She's excited. It's moving the way she wants it to move. You all can't hear her exclamations. I'll let you know. She's such a positive person. It's been really a joy to have her in the hot shop. And she loves all the things that we've been making with her. So it's been a very joyful week. So back into the oven. Looks like the inside of a seashell. Are there any questions out here? I just want to check in. Yes. What kind of things it can inspire Shoppy? Yes. As Icelandic landscape is what inspires. Volcanoes inspire her. Thank you, Jade. Yeah, Jade knows a lot about Shoppy. They work together a lot. So yeah, nature and Iceland. So she is from Iceland, and I'm pretty sure she lives there too, but she lives primarily in New York City. But yeah, great question. I'm glad you asked. Any other questions at this time? Oh, yeah, there. Uh-huh. On the piece itself? Good question. It's a great question. How hot can that get before it melts in? It depends on how hot the piece gets. If we keep going in there for longer and longer and longer and longer durations, it'll start to melt in a lot more. But if we keep it a little bit less of a duration like we are right now, we'll still have some of those sharper, that's in quotations because it's not actually sharp, but sharper edges to it. Just even a couple swipes of the torch sometimes will take those sharper edges and ball them up a little bit. Yeah. So we're thinking about that. That's something that Shoppy's seeing and saying, oh, well, maybe not this part because I like where that, that sharpness is. Yeah. Good question. Yeah, no problem. Awesome. And each one of these is so different. We say a lot here, well, in glass in general, that each piece is kind of its own. It's difficult to make glass look identical, but very possible. There are a lot of glass makers out there that can, and with any amount of practice, you can as well. But these works especially are very much so different from one another, one in their own. So Shoppy's wearing some funny glasses. So is Tom. Those glasses that they're using are didymium lenses, and didymium will filter out the bright light coming from the torch when they use the torch. So didymium allows them to see through that bright light a little bit better as to what they're doing. If you're staring at it a lot, you'll kind of not be able to see. I mean, it doesn't blind you or anything, but it does not allow you to see through that bright light. So those didymiums filter that out. Tom's are he also flame works, which is commonly, you basically look into a torch all day long with didymiums, that makes that a lot easier. We have some didymiums that we are lending to Shoppy for these demonstrations, so she can also see right through that. So yeah, Tom's comfortably looking at the glass. Jesse's not seeing the glass at all. He's just seeing that bright light. So that's the difference between those didymium lenses. Basically, it's like a purple. Gets rid of that yellow. Question. Yeah, that's a great question. The question is, does she go in with a definite plan, or does she kind of let the piece talk to her? It's definitely the latter. She knows what she wants as far as color, scale, and then specific additions like the frit and maybe like other things added to it. But when she's pulling it and pushing it, that's really happening in the moment, and she's reading what's happening in the glass and deciding from that. Yeah, that's a really rare thing to happen in glass blowing. Usually to make a concise piece, you really have to have a plan because glass won't really do what you want it to do without you having these particular processes down. But for this, we know that we're going to blow it up. We know that we're going to gather over it. Those are all things we can't really change. But the way that we sculpt it like that, that's definitely something we can read out and change. That's a great question, yeah. So she can be definitely an artist today and really dive in, shape this the way she wants it. Yeah, good question. Heating the pipe. Yeah, we're adding some heat. Michael's using the torch to heat up the punty, which is connecting the piece to the pipe. And if that gets too cold and it cracks back there, and if the punty cracks or falls off, the whole piece will fall off. Yeah. Yeah, you got it, definitely. So that's a very important job to keep the punty hot. Everybody here has a job, and they're all very, very important. All the jobs are important. Yeah. Awesome. As Shoppy presses into the glass right now, it's kind of falling where it got hot on the punty, which is a pretty good thing right now. And so Tom's just helping keep the piece straight. If it falls too much, that weight's going to be really difficult to get over, let alone turn in the oven. That's like 10 pounds on the end of a pipe, like not even on center. That's just going to rip your hands up. So Tom keeps that on center. The inside core bubble is still pretty solid, and just where we heat the glass is where it's moving. Looks like the inside of an eardrum or something. instead of an ear. That view is very interesting from the inside of that chamber for this one. It's always difficult as an artist, if anyone else out there is an artist too, you would know this too, but it's difficult to tell when a piece is finished. Shoppy is having no problems with that. She really, I like to think that she knows what she wants with these. She knows when to stop, when enough is enough, and all of them are really great. We're going to prepare to powder this. So we want that outside layer of glass to be just a little hot, and so that we can there it is. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, so we want the powder to melt in, so we just want to give it a little bit of heat there. Then go over to the powder booth. Glass powder is unhealthy to breathe into your lungs. So we have a powder booth that was developed for us to be able to add powder to the glass. And there's a big vacuum in the back side of the powder booth that just draws all of that powder into it and away from our faces. Is that good? You want more? All right, he brings it over to the yoke. And we're getting some of that chartreuse powder. And Shoppy's doing it this time. Yeah, great camera angle. And where the powder sifts on, a little bit of it should melt. Some of that's going to fall off naturally. But she's deciding where it's going to go. So she hasn't done that yet. Maybe she did it this morning, but I wasn't here to see that. But she didn't do it yesterday or the day before. So she's getting a chance to do it a little bit more. So we go back in the oven to melt that powder in, and then they're going to add a little extra, or just more in general. And now Jade is going to add some color. Jade is a glass maker. So anytime that Shoppy does anything with glass, she brings Jade with her. They make a really great team. Boy, that changes the surface of that so much. We kind of overdo it with the powder so that when it melts in and kind of gets rid of that overdoneness. I think we've got a few different colors, maybe an orange now. Wow, this is going to be awesome. So she pushed really far into the body of this piece, and filling it with some of these powders is looking really amazing. And this is white, so you can see there's orange and yellow and white. So fun. She loves it, she says. She's saying that a lot about this piece. This is fun. All right, done with powder. Got some nice layers. That's kind of the last thing that goes on. There might be some changes made before we put it away, but we're almost there. So our live stream will end here in just a minute, but we're going to keep it going. I think it should stay online too. But we're adding some heat to that punty. And the punty is going to be removed from the piece here in a minute. No worries. We're going to add just a little powder to one section. So back to that booth. Jade's getting right over it. She can see the part that needs to be powdered. There's like a section on the inside that they want to cover up. And I think they can just look at it too. I'm ready. Hang on, actually. All right, Emily, what do we got? Sure. Sure. The pieces on the table, we have an online question. The pieces on the table are clear frit that we made here in-house from our glasma furnace, our furnace full of glasma. And we sometimes make clear pieces in some of our demonstrations, and we use that recycled glass up in our innovation stage hot shop. So we have buckets of it, and so we're using that to create these really, really dynamic layers in the glass. by rolling that onto the top. So all those little blobs that you see on there is some of that freight added to the surface of the bubble. Thank you for your question. So all eyes on that section right now. Yeah. Right. All right, we'll torch that little spot in and see if they like the way that looks, because if you torch the powder, it'll make it shiny, not matte like that. Okay, awesome. So we are suiting up. We're getting ready to put this away. It's still got lots of heat. You can see it's moving ever so slightly. And Jesse's he's gonna put that into the oven. Okay. Just some final touches. The torch there will heat that up. This piece will need to slowly cool in a process known as annealing. Everything must be annealed. Windows, bottles, jars, everything. This will need about 3 days to anneal, maybe a little less than that. We're doing a 36-hour. Yep. So we're now going to take it off that punty by adding a drop or two of water to the punty connection. Oh, and we're going to reduce the inside. So yeah, we are going to use that torch, which is natural gas, just natural gas. And when we use that against the color inside of the bubble, the color has a lot of metals in it. It's iris vanilla. And it's going to bring all those metals to the surface. So it's going to all turn gold. Beautifully brilliant gold. It's going to be cool. So we did that for a second, but we realized we needed one more heat. And when you go into the heat of the oven, that kind of pushes those metals back into the color. So now we'll reduce it here. So look at that shine happen. Isn't that cool? We have a lot of nooks and crannies in there, so we gonna have to push that torch into it a bit, but looks great. Okay, we're going to put it into the oven. Jesse has some Kevlar gloves on his hands and a face shield and a fire-resistant hoodie. Tom's putting water onto the punty connection to get it to break free, and then we will fire polish it and put it away into the oven. Thank you. We're going to fire polish that punty connection and just add a little bit of texture to that. So this is kind of a all-around one piece. We want less of a punny mark there. We have lots of time with the thickness of this glass. Often you rush a piece to the oven so it doesn't cool down. We have no way of heating this up again. So if we stay out for even a few seconds too long, it'll crack and break. But again, we're very confident with the thickness here, so we can leave it out for a second or two and then put it into the oven. All right. Then Jesse picks it up. He'll go into the oven. And safe and sound it goes. Let's give it up for Shoplifter, everybody. Well done. So Shoplifter, Jade, Tom, Michael, Jesse. We have Emily on social media, Alexis on camera, Jason up in the booth. Thank you to everyone here on our team, in-house. And thank you all for joining us here today at the museum. We really appreciate that. And online, thank you. Have a good day. Thanks so much.